Welcome to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher, where we take you behind the scenes with peak performers to learn what makes them tick and discover how you can apply their lessons to your life. I'm your host, Molly Fletcher. March Madness is here, and I'm kicking it off with a coaching legend, Miami basketball coach Jim Larrañaga. Among the most accomplished coaches in NCAA men's basketball history, Larrañaga is in his 39th season as a head coach. A first-time nominee for the Naismith Hall of Fame, he's won more than 700 games in his career, which ranks in the top 10 among active coaches. Larrañaga captured the hearts of basketball fans around the country in 2006 when he led George Mason to the Final Four, becoming the first mid-major semifinalist in 27 years. In 12 seasons with Miami, he's led the Hurricanes to 6 NCAA tournament appearances, including an Elite Eight appearance just a season ago. In our conversation today, we talk about the 4 levels of commitment, leading in alignment with your core values, and how to coach discipline and accountability. Here we go. This is my conversation with Coach Jim Larrañaga. Coach Larrañaga, thank you so much for taking a minute. This is going to be fun. I want to dig in to leadership out of the gates here. How would you describe your leadership style?
First of all, Molly, I believe a great deal in being a very positive leader. I've read a lot of books on leadership, John C. Maxwell and so many others. And here's the way I would describe the role of a leader. A leader must create a crystal clear vision of what he or she wants the team to accomplish. Then the leader has to have the ability to motivate and inspire, and then empower the members of the team to reach far beyond what they are capable of doing. He has to be able to identify roles and to help them execute those roles. And everybody's got a role. Everybody is equal in the task. Everybody has to work together. You're not dependent or independent. You're interdependent on the members of your team. And the leader has to lead in that direction. He's got to set the example, and he's got to be true to his word.
How has your leadership style evolved over the years, Coach?
Well, back in 1993, I was the head coach of Bowling Green State University, and actually I was really struggling as a head coach. There were so many things I felt I knew and was prepared for, and found out that those responsibilities were far more challenging. And I met with my 2 older brothers, Bob and Greg, and they told me I needed to start reading more. And so the first book they recommended I read was The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Dr. Stephen Covey. And that book actually changed my coaching career. It allowed me to focus on the things that were most important, the habits that I wanted to have, and the habits I wanted to teach to my players. Every one of my players has heard me preach the 7 habits since 1993. And I think it's very, very important that players understand these habits are not just for basketball, but they're whatever you need to do to be successful in life.
Did those unlock the core values that I hear you talk about, Coach? Did that book help springboard, if you will, to the core values that, attitude, commitment, class? Get me inside of that a little bit.
Okay, so when I was a young head coach in my late 30s, I just was struggling, and I decided, well, there must be some things that we have to emphasize in order to be successful. And so the 3 things became attitude, commitment, and class. I wanted everybody associated with our program. I wanted to set the example of having a positive attitude towards everything we did. And I would use the expression, life is 10% what happens to you, 90% how you react to it. And then the second was commitment. We wanted our players and everybody associated with the program to make a total commitment to being the best that we could be. And commitment has 4 levels. And my players know these levels: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. And the physical means you've got to commit yourself physically, get yourself in great shape. You got to be to places on time. You got to work hard every day in practice. The mental is doing your homework, studying your games, studying your teammates' games, studying the opponent so you're very well prepared no matter who you play. The emotional is about being in control of your emotions. Keep your poise. Don't get angry and frustrated. Don't complain. Don't make excuses. And then spiritual is everything is about team spirit. We want everybody, we have a lot of goals, but the most important goals are the team goals of everybody working together to achieve them.
Coach, I think about organizations, and so often organizations have mission statements, core values, beliefs, et cetera. And some of them lean into them and they coach to them, they teach to them, they lead to them. And some just throw them up on a wall and don't live into them. How do you live into this every day? How do you coach to it, speak to it, bring all of this alive so that your guys show up with this front and center every day?
Well, Molly, I'm a man of routine. I have so many routines that I follow. I wanted my players to develop routines. I want them to see how we were going to play. So on our floor, there are boards that have the 10 commitments, the 10 things we want to do in basketball. Next to that are the 4 levels of commitment. And in order to keep it present in their mind, we recite those every day before practice. And I'll quiz the guys about it. We'll emphasize maybe one commitment, like getting back on defense. And when the guys have recited them enough, I'll often call one player out to turn his back and recite them from memory and let the other players know you're going to be called upon as well. So we want our players to understand the things that we are committed to. We want them to understand that they have to be committed to it at all 4 levels. And we want them to develop that routine every single day. The 7 habits of highly effective people are very, very important in my teaching. And I share those habits with the players every day. In fact, if you ask the player, what's your favorite habit of the 7 habits? Invariably, it's always the one that starts the season. And that's the second habit. And it's called begin with the end in mind. And we want to begin every season with the end of the season in mind. That's where we are now. We have a game on Saturday against Pittsburgh that's for the ACC regular season championship. And when we began this season, that was one of our goals. So we're very, very focused on being goal oriented, and we're very focused on the things that we are committed to. And we are very focused on living the 7 habits of highly effective people.
What's your approach to goal setting, both with the guys themselves, individual goals, as well as team goals?
The first thing I do is I meet with all the players individually before the season, and they all have individual goals they want to accomplish. But as I explained to them, our team goals have to supersede your individual goals. Your individual goals have to be things that help our team be successful. And then I explain some of our team goals have direct impact on how well we play. So, for example, our goal offensively is to average 75 points a game. By doing that, we feel we're going to win a lot of our games. Maybe not go undefeated, but win 80 to 90% of our games, the games where we score more than 75.
How do your guys hold each other accountable, and how do you hold your guys accountable relevant to their goals? What does that look like?
Well, first of all, we have a very simple definition of discipline. We think self discipline is hugely important. We're always emphasizing to our guys to be accountable, not only to themselves, but to the team, to the program. Our simple definition of discipline is this: do what you're supposed to do it when you're supposed to do it, and do it to the best of your ability every single day. And so we try to hold each other accountable to that level of discipline. We try to be very organized in our practices. Our players have to look at the practice plan. They don't have to study it. They've got to kind of know what the plan of attack is for that day. And in the 7 habits of highly effective people, Dr. Stephen Covey's first habit is be proactive. By that, we mean plan ahead. You have to have a plan. So we have a plan every day in practice. Our players need to know what that plan is. They need to buy into that plan and then execute that plan, just like they have to execute a game plan. And the players are going to be accountable to each other. We have great leadership in our senior class. We have 5 seniors this year, and they set the example. And then if anyone is not behaving in a first-class manner, they're going to let them know. And my coaches are going to let them know. And we do not punish. I don't use the expression, hey, we're going to punish that person for violating a team rule. We say we're going to give him a reminder. We're going to remind him that that kind of behavior is unacceptable. It might be something as simple as not getting back on defense, of complaining to a referee, who's one of our managers and didn't make a call that you thought you got fouled on. Simple things like that. We will give a player a reminder. He'll have to do a 10-second sprint or 10 push-ups. If a guy misses an uncontested layup, there's a reminder that we don't miss uncontested layups. And so the discipline has to be there. It has to be consistent. And the players have to remind each other that they have to execute every single day.
And you're a big visionary guy, right? Have you pushed that down or introduced that, if you will, to your guys? And get me inside of the way that shows up in your life daily and in preparation.
Yeah, Molly, back when I played college basketball, when I was in high school, I'd watch games on TV and then go to the court and visualize myself being John Havlicek or Jerry West. By doing that, I actually created game-like scenarios. When I got to college and I became a point guard, my teammates, I won't say they complained, but they always asked me, like, why do you talk so much? Because I would be directing them. I could see what was about to happen before it happened. I'd be directing them as to what to do. I'd tell my ball screener, you need to roll or you need to pick and pop. And I would tell my shooting guard, I'm going to penetrate and pitch. You're going to be open for a jumper. Be ready to shoot that. And I would try to visualize every aspect of a game. When I became a coach, I started to realize I could do it as a coach. And I start visualizing the game in my head before we ever play the game. How is the opponent going to play defense on us? Are they going to switch ball screens or trap ball screens? Are they going to front the post? Are they going to deny wing passes? And as I would visualize that, I would share it with the team and let them know the mental side of the game is so important. We say mental is the physical as 4:1, 4 times more important that you are mentally engaged and understand so you can execute. If you're not making good decisions because you don't know what the opponent is doing, then you're going to lose that game. You have to be very well prepared. So I always encourage my players to visualize. Some of them don't. Quite frankly, they don't see the need to. No, I got my own game. I'm doing my own thing. But I can tell you a story about Cam McGusty, who was a great player on our Elite 8 team last year. And at one point during the season, he was playing out of his mind. I thought he was playing as the best player in the ACC. And I said to him, Cam, what has transformed you from being a very good ACC player to like first team all conference and maybe the best player, not only on our team, but in the league? And he said, visualization. He said, Coach, I finally understood how important it was. And so before the game, the night before, I start visualizing the shots I'm going to be looking for, how my opponent is going to try to defend me. I start seeing myself defending the guy that you've told me I'm matched up with. And as I visualize, I can make that happen on the court. And that's something I learned a long time ago, reading Bill Russell's book, Second Wind. He said he visualized everything before the game began. And that's so important. And our players know how much I do it and how much I encourage them to do it.
So let's rewind the tape a little bit. You came to Miami in 2011 after incredible success at George Mason, where you took that team to an improbable Final Four run. Miami at the time was really a football school, and you're going to the ACC, which is loaded. Why Miami, Coach? Like, get me inside of that. What made you want to build there?
Well, first of all, Molly, I am very goal-oriented. One of my ultimate goals was to be a head coach in the ACC. Secondly, I love George Mason. I was there for 14 years and had a fantastic life experience. My wife loved it. My family loved it. My best friend at George Mason, I was actually the president, Dr. Alan Merton. And my wife and I had brunch with he and his wife every Sunday. So I had tremendous support from the administration. But the week before I applied for the Miami job, President Merton called me and said he was retiring. The moment he told me that, I knew things would change at George Mason. I didn't know if it would be for the better or worse, but I thought this is a perfect time for me to look elsewhere and see if there's one more chapter in my coaching career. Frank Haith left to go to Missouri that week. Two of my very good friends are very successful businessmen here in Miami, Jose Mas and Jorge Mas. I met them at the Michael Jordan Fantasy Camp in 2007 and got to know them very well. So I called Jose and asked him if it was possible to get my name in front of the committee to be a candidate for the job. Here's a funny story. He called me back when I was at my son's in Erie, Pennsylvania. My son Jay was coaching the Erie Bayhawks. And Jose said, hey, I think I can get you involved, but you need to send me your resume. And I said, well, I don't carry my resume with me. I won't be back to George Mason for another day. He said, no, I need it today. So I hung up the phone and my son said, copy and paste your Wikipedia bio and send it to him. So I did that. He brought it to President Shalala, the president of Miami. She told the committee to interview me. I interviewed. At the same time, Sean Eichhorst was being interviewed. He accepted the athletic director's position. He then called me, interviewed me over the phone, and offered me the job. And so one of my goals, I was able to check off, become a head coach in the ACC. And my son, Jay, when I had to make the decision, he said to me, won't it be great fun coaching at Cameron Indoor Stadium and the Dean Dome? And I said, it's only fun if you win. So we've won our share. We've won at the Dean Dome. We've won at Cameron Indoor Stadium. So we've had great fun and great success here at Miami.
Well, and the ACC's loaded, and you talk about Duke and you talk about the Carolinas, and you've built the reputation that it's not a surprise when you beat Duke, when you beat Carolina, when you beat these programs that are legendary. And Miami's a basketball school now. But even early on in your tenure, how did you create the confidence in your guys that they can step into a Cameron and win, right? That they can step into some of these legendary programs and win?
It was really our first team meeting. And basically, I sat down with the guys and told them that I'm a great believer in numbers, that numbers tell a story. Everything's a number: your age, your birthday, your salary, the score in a game, how many rebounds did you get, how many points did you score? Everything's a number. So I explained to the players, I said, look, we're going to have some goals, and we're going to have to be able to accomplish the goals. And then I asked them a question. Okay, looking at your team this past season, I was not the coach, but you guys produced certain numbers. How did you rank in the number of turnovers that you averaged? 350 teams. Where did you rank? Were you in the top 10 in fewest turnovers, or in the bottom 10 in the most turnovers? They all thought the same thing. I said, well, we're probably pretty good at that. Maybe we're top 50. And I said, no, we're 222nd. There's 221 teams that turn the ball over fewer times than us. And then I asked them about fouls. And they said, what do you mean fouls? I said, well, how many fouls do we commit a game? And I told them we were fouling way too much. I told them we were like 217 in committing fouls. I said, our goal is going to be in the top 10, top 25 in fewest turnovers, top 25 in field goal percentage, and top 25 in fewest fouls committed. Because in my mind, and I told them this, there are two things I hate: turnovers and fouling a shooter. You foul a shooter, we can't defend the free throws. You turn the ball over, we can't defend a fast break where they already outnumber us with a steal. And then that became, in the players' minds, like, wow, we're going to really have a clear picture of what we want to accomplish.
But you're breaking it down into the process, and great coaches talk about the process. Do you go deep and dive down into various verticals, various categories relevant to the examples that you just gave, so that the guys can see the top rung, if you will, that top 10%? And is that where that confidence has come from for them? Trusting the process, committing to the behaviors that drive the outcome that they want most?
Well, okay, I'm going to tell a quick story about how I gained their confidence and belief. So I asked the team the first day of practice, how many of you want the green light to shoot the three? How many hands you think went up? Everyone.
Really? Every
hand. Everybody wants the green light to shoot the three. We had Kenny Kaji, who was 6'11", Reggie Johnson, who was 6'10", Julian Gamble, who was 6'10".
I wouldn't have guessed that.
Every one of those guys wanted the ability to shoot the three. So what I tell them is, look, I'm not going to tell you if you have the green light. You're going to tell me whether you've earned the green light. And they were all like, how do we do that? I said, we're going to do a drill called 5 minutes of threes. We're going to shoot threes every day for 5 minutes and keep track. And if you can average 50 makes or more in 5 minutes, you've earned the green light. If you make between 40 and 50, you earn the yellow light. If you're below 40, you've earned a red light. So I don't have to tell you whether you should shoot it or not. And this only means when you're open. It's not when you're guarded. You're not taking a step back. A step in, three-point shot, you earn the green light. Well, Kenny Kaji was 6'11". He had been a transfer from the University of Florida, and he wanted to earn the green light. And I asked him, I said, well, Kenny, what kind of player are you? And he said, I'm a stretch four. I said, well, what does a stretch four do? And he said, shoots threes. I said, well, when you were at Florida, how many did you make? He said, none. Billy Donovan wouldn't let me shoot it. He said, Coach, are you going to let me shoot it? I said, all you got to do is average 50 or more. He averaged 57. He made 75 during the season and was an incredible stretch four man and led us to the ACC championship, along with Shane Larkin and Duran Scott and that group. In 2012-13, we won the regular season and the tournament championship, and we're the number 2 seed in the NCAAs.
Unbelievable. I hope you threw a little text over to Donovan telling him to check the stats on the three-point guy that he'd been boxing out. Do you find yourself feeling like you don't have enough time? Like you're drained and burned out? If so, head over to mollyfletcher.com/webinar to access this free training and get my game-changing energy management framework. That's mollyfletcher.com/webinar. Start today and learn to have more energy for what matters most. What do you, not basketball related, look for in a guy that you recruit? Right? I mean, you want 5-star guys, right? Obviously, physically, but what do you look for emotionally, mentally, relationally, spiritually from the guys that you go after?
Yeah, exactly what you're talking about. We always go back to our values: attitude, commitment, and class. So we're looking for a kid who has a positive attitude. If we see a kid constantly complaining to the refs or bad body language on the sideline, that annoys us, and we'll look deeply into that person to see if we think he would fit. And a lot of times the answer is no, he's not somebody I want to coach. Secondly, commitment: how hard a kid works at the defensive end of the floor. How much does he contribute when he doesn't have the ball in his hands? Is he very team-oriented or is he selfish? And we're always looking for the guys who are unselfish, who are very team-oriented, who the coach says he loves coaching them. And then the last, we always want kids who behave in a first-class manner. We want young men who are going to be role models in our community. And we want good students. We've got a 100% graduation rate of anybody who is not left early for the pros or transferred out. So if you stay for 4 years at Miami, you're going to graduate. It was the same at George Mason. So we're totally committed to the academic process as well. And we want to recruit players whose families and the young man say academics are important and I want my degree. So I have a great staff. Bill Courtney, DJ Irving, Cody Kimball are my assistants now. They know who I am. They know what I like. They try to identify those players. And then we have a priority list of the guys. We don't recruit volume. We recruit a handful of young men. A lot of coaches and teams right now are recruiting very, very young kids. They invite them in. They offer them scholarships. We're much more patient. I like to see kids who are still developing, who are getting better and better as the process unfolds. So my coaches know that. So we can find a diamond in the rough and help him develop. Isaiah Wong is that. Isaiah was recruited, but when he came in as a freshman, he was 6'2", 160 pounds. He had to develop into the player he is today. Now he's 6'3", 185, and has improved every aspect of his game. And I think that's true of most of our guys. Sam Wardenberg, when he came in, he was 6'10", 192 pounds, with a 6'5" wingspan. He had alligator arms.
For sure.
And he had to learn how to play at our tempo, in our style. And he did it, but he didn't do it in his freshman year. It took him years to become the player he eventually would become in his senior year.
You know, two of your peers, Roy Williams, Coach K, they've stepped away. What keeps you motivated, Coach? What keeps you motivated year after year?
Yeah, Molly, I love coaching. I started coaching in the 9th grade. My high school coach, Jack Kern at Archbishop Malloy High School, called me into the office right after Christmas. We were 7-0, the freshman team, but our coach quit. He left the Marist order and started a new life. So we didn't have a coach. So Coach Kern called me in. He always called me Larry. He said, Larry, you're going to have to coach the freshman team through the remainder of the season. And I did, along with a teammate of mine, Dick Zeitler. And we coached the team to an undefeated season. We went 21-0, won the city championship. And once I had that bug, that was it. My intentions were to be a high school coach, just like Coach Curran. But Terry Holland at Davidson College offered me an assistant coaching job when I was 21 years old. I started my college coaching career in Davidson at 21. I've been doing it for 51 years and absolutely loving it. I love being around my young players. As old as I am, I don't feel old. My brain doesn't think I'm old. My body, on the other hand, doesn't work like it used to. But I enjoy practices. I enjoy working with players. I enjoy working with a guy who wants to develop his game, improve his dribble moves, and improve his free throw. Molly, I had one of my players challenge me to a free throw contest. I said, well, I need a warm-up. He said, okay, you warm up. I'll wait. I made 39 in a row, and he said, hey, Coach, I forget the challenge.
I bet he did. That's awesome. I love it. How do you continue to evolve as a leader? I know you're a big reader. Are there some books that have, in addition to the 7 Habits, that you continue to lean into that have impacted you? And how else do you sharpen the saw consistently every day?
Yeah, sharpen the saw. Isn't that a great habit by Dr. Stephen Covey? You know, years ago, in my 40s, I was an insatiable reader. One of the books I read by Daniel Coyle was The Talent Code. And when I read that, I thought, oh my goodness, this is huge. Then I read Malcolm Gladwell wrote Outliers. I read that, and they were so consistent. So I started reaching out and reading more and more. Daniel Pink wrote Drive, and so many other books. The 1 Minute Manager, Ken Blanchard, and the 1 Minute Manager Meets the Monkey, and I read books about Zen and the martial arts, because it's almost all the same. It's all about discipline. One of the funny things, my assistant, Cody Kimball, was asking me about a good book to read. I said, you ought to read Deepak Chopra, The 7 Spiritual Laws of Success. And he said, why? I said, because you won't understand one of them. And he said, what do you mean? I said, like, he has a law of least effort.
Can you believe in the law of least effort? No, everything's about effort. I said, well, that's why you need to read the book and understand. Fish don't try to swim, they just swim. Birds don't try to fly, they just fly. You have to do what comes natural to you. The more you're able to make the game look easy, the more the game slows down for you, where you're running as fast as you can and everybody thinks you're in slow motion. That's really the whole key to being good. So all the books I was reading was teaching me that. And I've reached out to so many guys. The one I talk to this day, probably 2 or 3 times a week, is Dr. Bob Rotella. Dr. Bob Rotella is a sports psychologist. He is the sports psychologist for all the best players on the PGA Tour. He works with the golfers all the time. Dr. Rotella and I became great friends in 1979 when we were both at Virginia. And I just started learning from him. One of his very important messages to me was train, then trust. And I said, what do you mean, train, then trust? He said, during practice, you're a coach and you're a teacher. Train them to do what you want them to do. And in the game, trust them.
I love that.
Be a cheerleader. Clap for them. Clap for mistakes. I said, what? He said, clap for mistakes. Because you don't want your players, every time they make a mistake, looking over to see if you're angry at them. If they look over and see you're clapping and cheering them on, that will give them confidence that you believe in them. And the most important thing you can do for a player is believe in them. Build their self-esteem. Even false confidence is better than negative feelings. You need to build up their self-esteem, give them the utmost confidence. And that's what I try to do. When I called Shane Larkin into my office, the start of his sophomore year, and asked him what kind of season he thought he could have and our team could have, he said, I'm hoping I'll start. I think I can have, a pretty solid year. I think our team can be pretty good. And I said, no. And he said, what do you mean? I said, no, you're the best player in the league and we're the best team in the league. And you got to start believing that right now. We're putting the ball in your hands and you're going to lead this team to an ACC championship. And you're going to be first team all conference. You're going to be player of the year and you're going to be an All-American. And he looked at me almost in disbelief. He said, Coach, why do you say that? Because I know every player in this league and I know who you are. And I know how good you can be. You're very willing to defer to upperclassmen, but not this season. This season, you're going to lead us. And sure enough, with that kind of belief from the coach, Shane led us to an incredible season. We won 14 ACC games in a row. We beat the number 1 ranked team in the country, Duke. We beat them by 27. We followed that by beating Carolina by 26. We're the only team in the history of the ACC to beat Carolina and Duke in the same season by more than 25 points. So Shane Larkin did that. He led us. But my message to him is you're the best player, and I believe in you. You need to believe in yourself.
That changed the way he showed up at practice, at games. He believes. That's huge. I love that. Coach, I want to honor your time. I want to hit you with some rapid fire. But before I do, I got to ask you, right? Your son, Jay, he's with the Clippers on their staff. What's that like, right? My husband and I have daughters. And I mean, to watch your son develop as a coach and now, be in the league coaching.
Well, first of all, when Jay was a young boy and I was the head coach of Bowling Green, he'd get on his bike after school every day, ride over to Anderson Arena and play one-on-one with my manager. And then at night, he'd sit next to me as I made recruiting calls. And then after the recruiting calls, it got too late for the calls, I put on video and I'd break down the tapes. So he's really learned every aspect of coaching from his dad, from our family, from the time he was 8 years old. He was a ball boy at Virginia when we were the number 1 ranked team in the country, and he was rebounding for Ralph Sampson. He's had a love and passion for the game. When he graduated from Bowling Green as the leading three-point shooter in school history, he went to Europe and played 12 years of pro ball. He came back to the United States. Bill Courtney, my associate head coach, hired him to be an assistant at Cornell immediately. Then he left Cornell to become the head coach of the Erie Bayhawks in the NBA G League. Then Doc Rivers hired him at the Boston Celtics. He spent 1 year with Doc and 9 years with Brad Stevens as Brad's right-hand man, and now he's with Tyronn Lue with the Clippers. He loves coaching. He would bring, a lot of the Celtics would come here during the summer. He brought Jason Tatum down here. And I remember hearing him have the same conversation with Jason Tatum that I had with Shane Larkin. Jason said, my hope is that I can be an all-star one day. And I heard Jay say to him, no, your goal is too low. You're like the best player in the league. You got to consider yourself like the next LeBron James or the next Giannis Antetokounmpo or the next Kevin Durant. And from that moment on, I saw he just changed his attitude. Jason Tatum just went to work at becoming the best. And you see what he's doing right now for the Celtics. And Jay has done that wherever he's been. He's just an absolutely terrific coach.
Congratulations to you and your wife. It's got to be really rewarding personally to watch your son develop and to do something he loves so well. So I want to hit you with some rapid fire. What is one word to describe you?
Positive.
One word your players would use to describe you?
Energy.
What's your most memorable career moment?
I'd have to say taking George Mason to the Final Four and winning the ACC tournament championship and cutting down the nets.
What's your best piece of leadership advice that maybe you received or you'd give to someone else?
I tell every young coach who plays for me and every manager, grad assistant, anybody who's around me, the old saying, it's not what you know, but who you know. I would tell them, make friends with everybody. Have the largest network of people that you can reach out to because you're always going to need help. I do not hesitate to reach out to people to help me in my program. Whether it's a Dr. Bob Rotella or a former assistant like Eric Conkle, who's now the head coach at Tulsa, or anybody in the business world who I've gotten to know, politicians who I've gotten to know. But I think the most important thing, I have right around 5,000 contacts in my phone. So whether it's an NBA coach or general manager or assistant or scout, I pretty much know who I want to reach out to when I need help with something.
What's the one habit that you think has significantly improved your life?
I would say that the habit of developing routines. I get up the same time every morning. My alarm is set every day for 7:15. I'm normally up before that, oftentimes at 6 or 6:30, but that alarm goes off at 7:15, and that tells me, get your day started. I eat the same breakfast every morning. That started when I was in high school and my mother fixed me a bacon sandwich and an eggnog every single day for 4 years. Now my wife fixed me cereal, Frosted Flakes or Honey Nut Cheerios. It's every day. At lunch, I have a Smoothie King, Angel Food, the same smoothie every single day. I try to develop as many routines as possible. That's why our practices are so routine. It doesn't mean they're boring because we are competitive. So we make a lot of drills competitive and we have different methods. There's what you might call block learning, where you just repeat things over and over again. But then there's also random learning, where you don't repeat the same thing over, you challenge somebody. So if you're learning to shoot, don't just stand there shooting threes. Shoot a three, then shoot a pull-up jumper, then shoot a layup. Random acts. Do it without a defender, do it with a defender, do it with two defenders. Everything is about improving and making progress in whatever skill you're teaching. And that's what we spend most of our time on, teaching skills.
I love it. You read a lot. You reference a lot of books. Is there a book you've read recently or two that's really changed the way you show up every day?
There was a book that I read not too long ago called Chop Wood, Carry Water. Trey McKinney-Jones, who played on our ACC championship teams, sent it to me and said, Coach, I read this book and it reminded me of you. I think you'll enjoy it. And I certainly did. So I try to read books, not what I would call basketball books, although the one I'm reading now was written by Dick DeVinzio. It's called Stuff All Good Players Should Know. And Dick DeVinzio was a contemporary of mine. He was an All-American at Duke, and he was a tremendous point guard, 5'10", left-hander. And he wrote this book shortly after he graduated from college. That was in the 1970s. And all of the lessons in that book still apply today.
So, Coach, I want to just wrap. Who is a game changer, a person who inspires you, dead or alive, who inspires you and why?
Well, the first person that comes to my mind is Coach Jack Curran at Archbishop Malloy High School. He was my inspiration for wanting to be a coach. When I met with him and told him about wanting to get into coaching, he said to me, understand this, that coaching is a job of service. Your job is to serve your players. By that, I mean, help them achieve their goals, help them get a good education, help them become the best basketball player they can be. But if all you did was teach them the game of basketball, your life would not be very worthwhile. Your job is to teach them life skills, to teach them how to be successful long after their basketball playing days are over. And so he inspired me to do that. I try to do that every day with my players at Miami. I did it at George Mason. I did it at Bowling Green.
I know he had an amazing influence on your life. That is awesome. So many incredible leadership lessons, Coach. Thank you for taking time during March, which is going to be a busy and long month for you, I hope.
Well, thank you, Molly. I look forward to it.
Wow, I felt like that was one amazing leadership lesson after another. Here are a few of my favorite takeaways from my conversation with Coach Larrañaga. Number one, lead in alignment with your core values. Think about your team's culture. Are your core values just words on a wall or on the organization's website? Or are they values that your team actually lives, breathes, and acts according to day after day? Keep your core values front and center. Live them. Commit to them daily. Number two, give your team members the chance to earn it. This was cool. I loved the story that Jim told about allowing his players the opportunity to earn the green light, to earn it. Empowering your team members to determine their role in this way is so cool, so powerful. How can you take that and apply it to your own life, to your own organization, to the people that you lead? Number three, discipline, it's key. We know this. But I wrote down Coach's definition of discipline because I really think he nailed it. Do what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it and to the best of your ability every single day. So good. If you can coach your team to be that disciplined, watch out. Thanks, as always, for listening to Game Changers with Molly Fletcher. If you like the show, be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts. There you can listen to previous episodes and leave us a review, which helps other people find out about the show. This episode was edited and sound designed by the team at Sound On Studios. You can find out more about their work at soundonsoundoff.com. Check it out. For more about me, visit mollyfletcher.com. Until next time, stay curious and be bold.